Hello, and welcome to this episode of AWS On Air. I am your host, Brian Terry, and I'm a senior developer advocate on the CloudFormation team. And I'm joined here with my good friend and co host, Kyle. Kyle, how about you introduce yourself?
Hey, Brian. Hey, and thank you. I'm Kyle Dickinson. I'm with the AWS Customer Incident Response Team, and today we are joined by two awesome guests that have a very interesting topic to talk about. And hey, security folks, you might want to listen in on this one because this is something that's going to impact your organization if this is running in your environment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so we're joined here by Andy and Yogi. So, how about you guys introduce yourselves and tell us what are we talking about
So,
today?
hey everybody. So, my name is Andy Hopper. I'm the worldwide tech leader for Microsoft Workloads here at AWS. And I'm actually joined here by my colleague Yogi Bharat. Yogi?
My name is Yogi Barot. I am from Sorry, should I
No,
say
go ahead.
Toronto or no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
My name is Yogi Barot. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and my role is Microsoft Specialist Principal Solution Architect. And I bring with 22 years of experience working with SQL Server. So today we'll be talking about SQL Server end of support and what it means to me.
What does SQL Server and
Yes.
end of support mean to you?
Well, when Microsoft product, every product, basically SQL Server product has 10 years of support, right? First 5 years is a mainstream support, and the next 5 years is an extended support. So today is the day, July 12, 2022. Today is the day where SQL Server 2012 will be out of support. That means any applications running on unsupported database may cause an compliance issue and security risk.
Now, the
Uh,
math checks out because SQL Server 2012 and it is 2022. Now, what is the risk here? I mean, when something is end of support, what is it that we're missing out on essentially?
So risk to SQL Server is very heavy. Now attackers know that they have an access to an unpatched database, and they will try to basically hack in, right? So you are you have vulnerabilities in the software, and your database management software is now highly valuable target. Let me tell you one thing. You mentioned about SQL 2012 is an old version, but do you know when was the last patch was released by Microsoft? It was this year. January 2022 was the latest security patch released, right? So you cannot ignore that being is an old version. Who cares about it? Actually, you have to be more careful because an older version is more vulnerable.
That's an interesting trivia question. When was the
yeah, it
last time
is.
2012 was patched? Well,
Yeah.
this year.
So, do you mean by end of life? Does that mean, if I'm a customer running SQL Server after that date, it's actually going to complete shutdown and it's not going to work? Or do we mean that, it's end of patching and we need to upgrade?
So your SQL Server will be running fine. It's not gonna like it's not like that your SQL Server will stop supporting or stop working. In fact, you can install SQL Server 2012 on the higher operating system as well, but there won't be any more security updates, right? So when you don't have security updates, that means you are now keeping your database. It's like open source, making it open source so that anyone can come and attack to it because it's not patched.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. It really, if anything, the what you should be considering is that because of the fact that your SQL Server engine is not going to just stop working at the end of support date, it means that from that point on, you're going to be more and more vulnerable to potential attacks because Microsoft is no longer going to be patching that database engine.
Interesting.
And I'm sure there's use cases where folks have, made the business decision to run these older versions. But where is there like a method for our customers in AWS that are hosting SQL Server within their accounts for their organization? What is it that we're going to be suggesting or providing for those customers to be able to migrate essentially?
So we do have an tool to help customer with SQL Server 2012 hosted on Amazon EC2 instance. We have a tool called AWS System Manager. So System Manager, you can automate the upgrade of your SQL Server 2012 end of support instance, and now you can upgrade it automatically to a SQL 2014 or any higher supported version, right? So this method gives you, it's just like an iPhone, right? When you go out in on the shop and then you want to buy new iPhone 14 when it released in September, right? So you want to make sure everything on your old phone gets stays as it is, and at the same time, the new phone has the same data, right? So basically, you will get an AMI, upgraded AMI, with everything on your older EC2 instance, including all SQL Server databases, instance level object, master object, jobs, and everything, and you will have an upgraded SQL engine, basically.
And I know Brian and I were talking about, System Manager is one of his favorite services. Brian, can you tell us real quick what System Manager does?
Yeah. So I would say it's one of my favorite services, but I can't because I'm on the CloudFormation team and I'm a VA there. So I can say CloudFormation
Uh-oh.
is number one, and System Manager is like right there. But yeah, I love the idea of you guys using System Manager for this solution, because System Manager, for everyone that hasn't used it, like the 10,000 foot view of it is, it allows you to manage things in AWS at scale like this, right? It allows you to do patching, a lot of administrative tasks that may take a while, but you can actually do this at scale across multiple accounts and multiple regions. And I think this solution is a perfect use case of using System Manager for this. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And honestly, wanted to actually just kind of double click on that a little bit. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is Systems Manager, the agent that gets installed automatically on any EC2 instance that you launch in AWS, it's already going to be there. It's a service that is available free of charge to you. It's going to be available to all customers. And as Brian said, it handles things like patching. And as Yogi is going to demonstrate in a little bit later, it's going to handle things like automating very complex interactions that you may have across not only a single instance, but even across entire fleets of instances that you're running in AWS. So it dramatically reduces the complexity of operating instances that you have in AWS.
That's awesome. And you mentioned a demo, and everyone loves to just, see it in action. So we'll go ahead and go over to the demo here. And
Do a demo of SQL Server 2012 on EC2, and we will be upgrading that using System Manager Automation Runbook. So, what is System Manager? It's an powerful unified interface that provides an ability to centrally manage your AWS resources. So, it uses an AWS SSM agent and System Manager documents. So AWS SSM agent is a software that can be installed on your EC2 instance, and it processes the request from the system manager service and then configure machine accordingly, right? So with this automation document, it will create an AMI from your SQL Server 2012 running instance and then perform an in-place upgrade of your SQL 2012 to SQL 2016 or any supported higher version. And the final result is an upgraded instance AMI. So let's check how it works. So as you can see here, this is the SQL Server 2012 instance. We will be using that instance to do an upgrade. Now let's just check a couple of details for this instance. This instance is using a SQL Server 2012 AMI, as you can see here. So what I'll be requiring is to get the subnet ID for this instance. So I'm going to copy that subnet ID. And at the same time, I will also require the IAM role. So I will be copying that IAM role as well, which is in here. Okay, so now these both things are copied. What we'll do is we'll go to the system manager. So let's just type system manager over here and then open that in another tab. So with System Manager, what we have different tools available within System Manager. We will be looking at automation today. So let's click on automation and then click on execute automation here. As I said, we have a predefined 135 predefined system manager document that we can use it here for automation. So let's look at the SQL Server specific document today. We'll be using this AWS EC2 clone instance and upgrade SQL Server document today in the demo. So let's just click on the document here and click on execute automation. We will we will need to specify the input parameters. There are a couple of inputs that we need to specify for this automation document. One of them is obviously the instance that you want to upgrade. You can select the instance here. And we need to put an subnet ID that we have copied earlier. So let's put the subnet ID over here. Actually, subnet ID, this is the EC2. I am instance profile here, and then let's just copy the subnet ID here as well. So this is the subnet ID. And another input here is a target version. So we can select the which will be our target SQL Server version. So right now you see here 2014, 2016. I'm going to select 2017 for the demo. And that's it. You don't need to specify any other options over here, just with simple couple of parameters, and we can click on execute the automation. So what this is going to do in the background is basically take your SQL 2012. It will do an in-place upgrade of your SQL 2012 to an SQL 2016, and the final result will be an upgraded instance AMI. So that means just like when you go to your iPhone upgrade, right? So they and when you get the new iPhone from, for example, upgrade from iPhone 7 to iPhone 13, you have a new hardware. And with the new hardware, everything, all the data, all the applications, whatever you had it on your previous phone stays as it is. And basically, you will get it on the new phone. Same thing, something like that works here in the backend. Everything for your SQL Server, which includes your SQL Server instances, all the databases, master database object, everything stays intact, and you will just have an AMI ready with the SQL Server upgraded version, and you can just launch instance using that. So this is going to execute. As you can see, it started executing the different steps already. It's at step 12 right now. It's going to execute around 53 steps. While it's executing, let me just show you how does the result look like. So we can check here automation. Actually, go back to the executions, and we can see the last successful execution. For example, let's check the result, and I will show you how does it the output looks like. So basically, you can see here this executed successfully up to step 53. It does an upgrade, and result is success over here. The output here is an SQL Server upgraded AMI. So this is an output EC2 SQL Server upgraded AMI, right? So this AMI is available in the EC2 console. So let's just go and validate that. So here is an EC2 console, and I'm going to just go check the AMIs here. And as you can see, this is an AMI, which was a result of the upgrade that I did last time. So this AMI is Windows with SQL Enterprise. And now let's just connect. What we can do is basically I can just launch an instance from the AMI just with a simple click. When I launch the instance, I can specify the instance type and all of the details, and then launch the instance, right? So once I launch the instance, everything on my SQL 2012 machine, which was previously upgrade the older version, now you can see that on the newer version. So I have already created the SQL 2017 instance. Let's just check which one is this is upgraded using automation document. So let's check here. We'll be using SQL Server Management Studio. And what I want to show here, as you can see here, this is a SQL 2012. Because this has been upgraded from SQL 2012, you see that when you start for the first time. And I'm going to connect to the local host over here. And let's just see the database and the version. So you can see this is an AdventureWorks 2012 database. So this is a 2012 instance that which I had earlier. And then you can check the version of SQL Server, which is right now. Let's just see the version, which is SQL 2017, right? So as you can see, we have successfully upgraded the SQL Server 2012 to a higher version just with few simple clicks, and you have your SQL.
Demo, and it really shows how you can use System Manager to scale to kind of patch systems like this. What I find interesting is like using SQL Server on AWS. That's really cool, really powerful. I think it is. Can you elaborate on the benefits of customers doing this on AWS or running SQL
Yeah,
Server
I
on
mean,
AWS?
really, we've been talking about how you can upgrade and whatnot, but yeah, sure. So, one of the things we really should kind of double click on is why customers would be interested in running SQL Server on AWS in the very first place, right? And
Mhm.
honestly, the key thing here is that AWS has been helping customers run Windows and SQL Server workloads for over 14 years now. In fact, that's actually longer than a lot of cloud providers that offer the ability to run Windows and SQL Server workloads haven't even been in existence. But because of that experience, we've been helping customers achieve a lower total cost of ownership by optimizing our infrastructure to host those workloads and really help customers save operating costs by leveraging things like the licenses that they've already paid for. Um, One thing I really should point out is that by virtue of the fact that we've been focusing on optimizing our infrastructure for running these workloads, we actually have, we're able to offer better raw performance and reliability than the next largest cloud provider that's out there. In fact, there's actually been a recent study by an independent third party that found that AWS was able to offer 1.79% times higher transactional throughput with 1.9 times higher transactional latency. And what this means basically is that customers are able to get the best performance for those database intensive workloads at the lowest cost possible, which means that they're going to be able to achieve their business objectives at the lowest cost. And all of this, yeah, go ahead,
let me
Ray.
add
Yeah.
let me
Yeah.
add few points here as well, Andy, right? So what I have seen, I've been helping customers migrate their SQL Server workload, Windows workload to AWS cloud. And what I have found from the customers experience themselves, that AWS is the cloud that runs and modernizes the SQL Server best, right? So AWS has helped thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers transition their SQL Server workload to the cloud. In fact, I was talking to the world largest SQL Server customer, and they wanted to find out what are the options for running their SQL Server database on AWS cloud, right? So customers continues to choose AWS for migration and modernizing SQL Server for few reasons, as Andy mentioned, like optimized price performance, flexible licensing, and security, and at the same time leveraging the innovations that AWS has to offer by giving you so many instance size, variety of instance to select, lot of configuration options, management options, and deployment options. So that gives all in one place for SQL Server workload.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can think of one
Yeah.
of the biggest things is like the backups, right? To be able to have those snapshots. I mean, they could, save you in a crisis, and that's really important.
Yeah. And actually that's a fantastic point to kind of drill into a little bit. So, first and foremost, customers are always able to run SQL Server on AWS using our Elastic Compute Cloud or EC2 instances. That's literally just a VM. It's
Mhm.
Windows. You can install SQL Server and whatnot. But we also offer the ability for you to run SQL Server as a managed service. And so when I say managed, what I mean is that AWS will take care of the instance, will launch the instances, will install the database engine for you, and then the only thing that your DBAs need to worry about is just the care and feeding of your actual database. They no longer have to worry about patching the boxes that your database is running on. They don't even have to worry about things like point releases on the actual database engine. And above and beyond that, we'll even do, to your point, things like automate the backup process for your database. So
Yeah.
it really means that your business can focus on the thing that really makes your business stand out, which is the innovation on top of the database engine, as opposed to the care and feeding of a SQL Server engine.
And I can vouch to that, Andy, because I've been DBA in my past life, and I know how difficult it is to manage those maintenance and and late night calls when your
Yes.
backups run out of the storage, and especially maintaining the monitoring and maintaining the high availability, like it's nightmare, especially when you are running an highly critical SQL database. I experienced that myself. So one of the features that you mentioned about RDS SQL Server is multi-AZ and automated
Mhm.
provisioning and monitoring of a SQL Server high availability. That's a feature I love about SQL Server on RDS.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I've
mean,
been there too. I've been a DBA and I've actually stood up 2012 on prem. So yeah, in those days, if this had existed, I definitely would have shifted my workload to
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It really, at the end of at the end of the day, when you talk about things like the managed services that we offer here in AWS, you have to ask yourself, why are your customers coming to you and using your services? I assure you, it's not because you're so awesome at running a SQL Server engine. It's about the stuff that you're layering
Yeah.
on top of the database. So let's let the AWS handle the things that AWS is awesome at, which is operating the database, and let's let your DBAs, worry about the innovation and optimization of the database that's running on top of that.
I dig
And
it.
can we also talk about like how can we modernize the SQL Server as well? That's also a great options I
Yes.
see, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to Yogi's point, so one of the things that we've just announced fairly recently is the new Babelfish engine. So we have customers who they have existing workloads that are running on top of the Microsoft SQL Server database engine, but they're interested in getting away from that licensed database engine. It can be very expensive. It also tends to lock them into version releases. They, can't move forward unless they re-up and acquire new licenses, which tend to be fairly expensive. And so what we've done is created a brand new service called Babelfish. And with Babelfish, what we're allowing customers to do is take their existing SQL Server database applications and run them on top of the open source Postgres SQL database
Mhm.
engine. Now, under the covers, what's actually happening is we've got a proxy service that will actually translate SQL Server's native. I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds here, but there's something called the tabular data stream or TDS protocol. And what Babelfish will do is translate that wire protocol into commands that are actually compatible with that open
sorry,
source database
it's
engine.
it's not a translation layer, so we need to cut down that statements. So with Babelfish, actually, it is just like I'm a bilingual, right? I speak and understand multiple languages, and in whatever language you ask my questions, that's how I will answer, right? So Babelfish is bilingual, right? So it can understand SQL Server, it can understand Postgres as well, right? So PG SQL as well, so P SQL and T SQL, and depends on how you query and how you select your driver to connect to it and which port, that's how it's going to answer. So it's not doing any translation or anything. It's basically allow you to understand the language and use the Postgres extension to use that feature. But it's an awesome way to get away from SQL Server licensing cost and then move to modernized on Amazon Aurora for PostgreSQL. Well, that was a nice discussion. Thank you, Andy. Anything else, Brian, Kyle, you have for us?
No, I'm excited to see that
Yeah.
there's a way to at scale migrate off of a end of support version, especially from the security point of view. We want to be able to get off of a version that's no longer going to be patched for security vulnerabilities that may come up, but also just thinking about new features that have been released since over the last 10 years. I can't believe 10 years have already come and gone.
So if you're watching live, don't forget today is the day, July 12th, 2022. Please check your SQL 2012 and work for your future plan to host into AWS Cloud.
Yes.
All right, thank you everyone for your time.